Hello and welcome back to another FPL team selection video. Last week was another one of our mixed bagged kind of weeks. We ended up with 64 points and again kind of just carried by a couple of players. You know, it feels like the last 3 or 4 weeks there's been a lot of 2 or 3 pointers in the team, and yeah, we kind of have mostly been carried by Haaland as our captaincy. This week it was Trent Alexander-Arnold, and quite happy with how that went. Obviously we went against Haaland this week, didn't really feel him too much as a captaincy against Arsenal. Trent obviously picked up an 11 pointer, which was fantastic, with that assist and the clean sheet, and I believe he picked up 2 bonus as well. So we managed to outscore Haaland by 2 points, which was nice. Again, like I said though, the rest of the team pretty disappointing. Thankfully we didn't get too much of a red arrow. I think I only dropped about 80,000 places, which in the grand scheme of things is only like 2 or 3 points. It's still very close right now. Obviously last week we were talking about Nicholas Jackson, which ended up being a huge disappointment. If you watched last week's team selection video, basically we were stuck between transferring out João Pedro for transferring out Isak for Nicholas Jackson and then captaining Nicholas Jackson, or saving that transfer to roll it until after our wildcard this week and captaining Trent. Now, I think it was like a 16 point swing that we missed out on. Obviously Jackson picked up a huge haul, so very disappointing, and I actually think had we brought Jackson in and captained him, I'd be sitting like 200,000th in the world right now. So what could have been a fantastic game week unfortunately ended up with a small red arrow. But let's take a look and see at our team for this week, because we are activating the wildcard. So finally being able to move on from that team that we've had for the last 5 game weeks, we are starting brand new and fresh. We've got a team value of 100.8 million. Now I'm recording this on Thursday night, and as it stands I believe 5 of these players tonight are going to go up in price, so that team value should hopefully be a lot more by the time this video comes out. Now we're starting off with Raya in goals. You can see Gabriel in there as well. I've decided to opt for the double Arsenal defence rather than the double Arsenal attack, purely because I think this could be good long term. You know, we've seen how solid Arsenal can be in defence. I think the attack's going to be good for the short term. Leicester, Southampton, Bournemouth in the next few games. After that it starts to get a little bit more difficult, and I think Arsenal are still capable of keeping a clean sheet. So if we're going to be keeping Raya, Gabriel for the long term, I'd rather do that than have someone like Havertz up front, if that makes sense. So opting for the double Arsenal defence, I think it just edges out the double Arsenal attack, and with Havertz, with Odegaard out, I don't think he's really as effective. So I'm not really feeling too many other Arsenal attackers outside of Bukayo Saka. Now we've also got Trent in here. I don't really think he needs too much explanation. I was tempted to go for someone like Robertson and save $1 million to put elsewhere in the team, but I think Trent just kind of like, I think there's a big enough gap to pay that extra $1 million between Trent and Robertson. Trent's like number 1 on a lot of the defensive attacking metrics, so happy enough to go with him. But the one that we've got in here is Pedro Porro, that I haven't seen in a lot of wildcard drafts this week. Now for me, he's someone that I definitely want to be having. You can see with the stats on screen, he's number 1 for shots from defenders, he's number 3 for expected goal involvements for defenders, and he's number 2 for key passes from defenders. So attacking wise, he's been absolutely fantastic. He hasn't had the easiest fixtures in the world. They haven't been horrendous fixtures, but they haven't been particularly easy, and I'm seeing a lot of drafts with Solanke, Maddison in them, people trying to cover off that Spurs attack. So if people are thinking Spurs are going to score goals, I feel like Porro is definitely going to be involved in it. I think he's due to drop in price tonight, which is quite unfortunate, but I don't lose any selling value in that because I bought him at 5.5. But you can see with the fixtures down below, he's got Man United, Brighton, West Ham, Palace, Villa. It's not horrendous fixtures. I still don't know why Brighton is classed as a green fixture, but it is for some reason. But West Ham, Crystal Palace, I think they're fixtures that he could do really well in, and again, we're just kind of hoping that Spurs can keep clean sheets. I think attacking wise, Porro's absolutely got it nailed on. Just hoping for a couple clean sheets to come through as well. Now, in the midfield then, I think we've pretty much went the template wildcard midfield. I think the majority of players are picking these 5 guys in midfield. Starting off with Bukayo Saka, again, pretty much essential. Everyone's tripling up on Arsenal. Everyone's trying to get that triple Arsenal for the next few games because they look like they're going to be scoring a good few goals. Saka has returned in every single game so far. For me, he's absolutely essential. Now, we've got Luis Diaz as well. Again, another one due to rise in price tonight. And again, very happy with him. I think he's worth having over someone like Salah. Liverpool are coming into a tough run of fixtures. I don't think Salah is going to be worth the 12.5 million, especially when you're not going to be captaining him. So Luis Diaz for essentially 5 million cheaper, I think is definitely going to be good. And he's actually outscored Salah as well so far. And his underlying stats are very, very good. He is overperforming them, but they're still good enough for someone who is as cheap as he is. And Mbeumo, of course, one of the most essential players, I think, for a wildcard 6. Brentford have a very, very nice run of fixtures for the long term. One of the best attacking teams as well. If you want to look more specifically into why we've picked, for example, Mbeumo, Semenyo, make sure you take a look at our best wildcard picks that came out earlier on in the week. It's like a half an hour video. We've got absolutely everything covered on what you should be doing for your wildcard. All the stats, all the players, absolutely everything. So make sure you go and look at that after this video is done. Of course, Semenyo in here as well. He's mainly going to be for the short term, but you can see with our bench, we've got a very, very strong bench. I didn't speak about Lewis and Moreno previously, but again, they're very cheap. 4.4 million for Moreno. You're only paying like an extra 0.3 than going for a 4 million defender, so we're bulking out our bench. Again, last week, you would have seen by the team that a lot of my players had to come on off the bench with a lot of players not playing. So I feel like the bench with a lot more rotation is going to be very useful, and I'm really just spending an extra couple, like not even like a million. For example, Rodgers is like 0.5, Moreno's like 0.3. It's like a 1 million to bulk the bench up a bit. And make sure I've got enough rotation if any of my players get rested or injured in the next few weeks. So even though Semenyo's going to be good for the short term, I can always just drop him to the bench in a couple of weeks. And I think with trying to save 5 transfers, it's going to be good to have a good bench that I can always use. That way I can save, or I can just keep building up my transfers. If someone's got a difficult run of fixtures, I can just stick them on the bench and then save transfers as much as possible. So I'm going to try and build up 3-4 transfers over the next few weeks and see how that goes. Now, speaking of the bench, obviously we have Morgan Rogers sitting there as well. Now, in all honesty, I'm not a big fan of having him. I was tempted to go for McNeil, Dwight McNeil, for an extra 0.2 million, I believe he is, maybe 0.3 or maybe 0.1, but I've got Calvert-Lewin up front and I didn't want to double up on the Everton attack. So we've got Morgan Rogers. Again, I kind of mentioned him in one of my old transfer tips videos earlier on in the season. I don't really think he's the greatest. You can see by his stats, he's not really performing humongously. I think for the price he's doing okay, 27th for shots and midfielders, 29th for expected goal involvement. So he's not absolutely fantastic, but again, he's probably just going to be someone who is on the bench for me. He's playing a lot of minutes, he's starting every week for Aston Villa, could potentially be on penalties. Again, we've got no confirmation on that, but I think for me is just going to be someone who does sit on the bench. So I'm probably not going to play him all that often. Not the biggest fan of him. Personally, I would prefer to have Dwight McNeil, but like I said, I've got Calvert-Lewin, so I didn't want to double up on that Everton attack. And then rounding things off with the attackers, obviously Calvert-Lewin, as I had just mentioned. We've got Chris Wood as well, and of course Erling Haaland. He's going to be our captaincy probably for the next 2 months. I don't really see me going anywhere else other than him. Now, Chris Wood for me is probably one of the most locked players in my draft as soon as we hit the wildcard button, because he's got fantastic fixtures over the next few, and really, really excited to see how it goes with him. Obviously, with him taking a penalty, a lot of people expected Morgan Gibbs White to be the penalty taker for Forest. Wood is looking like the penalty taker for Nottingham Forest, which makes him even better of a pick. Only 6.1 million, a really nice run of fixtures for Forest. More than happy to pick him. So that is the team we've got on screen. Like I said, trying to bulk the bench up a bit. I did look at dropping the bench down a little bit. I wanted at least 2 good bench players, so that probably would have meant dropping Lewis down to a 4 million defender and saving 0.7 in the bank, but I wasn't really. I couldn't see anywhere in this team where I wanted to add 0.7 to it. The only one potentially was moving Diaz to Bruno Fernandes, but do I want to go down that route again? I'm not really too sure. It is always an option. You know, by the time the deadline comes, I could drop Lewis down to a Wout Fass or something like that, and then have money in the bank to make transfers if I wanted to. I don't think I'm going to do that, but it's always an option. Even in a few weeks' time, I could always use 1 or 2 transfers and kind of make the bench a little bit less bulky, but it sorts me for a good few weeks. I've got enough players for rotation to bring in and out. Happy with Alex Moreno. A lot of people did say, well, he does seem to be a little bit of an iffy pick because he was subbed after 45 minutes in the previous match, but I'm happy to risk him. Again, he's going to be a bench player most of the time, so I'm not expecting him to play however often in my team. I'm not sure about Forest, but if he doesn't play, he doesn't play. He's not owned enough where he's going to drop in price much more than 4.4 million, so I'd be willing to take the risk on him and see how that goes. So obviously there is also rumours floating about as well that Raya could be out of the game at the weekend with an injury, so I've put together a little bit of a contingency plan if that is the case. Now obviously if Raya is going to be injured, I don't want to pick him at all, so we've got Flecken coming in for him, saving the million, and I'm kind of just using the million to upgrade the players that I'm not massively convinced on in my team. So I've got Diaz, Rodgers, Calvert-Lewin. Rodgers, obviously spoke about him already. I do prefer Dwight McNeil. Now, I went for him because I can upgrade Calvert-Lewin to Havertz. Obviously, I still want the triple Arsenal. I did consider Saliba, but I don't really think it's going to be worth it pumping money into a 4th premium defender on top of the 3 that I've already got. So went for Havertz instead. I think it is a fair upgrade on Calvert-Lewin. Even it probably would mean a transfer out in a couple of weeks though, which is unfortunate, but it lets me get in McNeil over Rodgers, and then obviously bringing those upgrades in means that I don't have the money for Diaz. I've decided to go for Brennan Johnson. Was also considering Kudus, that kind of is my 50-50, but Johnson's got some good underlying stats. It seems as though ever since he got the abuse from the Spurs fans that he's found a new spark, and he has been playing pretty well recently. As of tonight, he scored in the Europa League as well. He scored last week. And he seems to be in some pretty decent form, and it kind of is my way of covering Solanke, Son, Maddison, those kind of players. For only 6.4 million as well, you're getting a starting Spurs player who has played in all 5 matches, and I believe only came off the bench once as well. So this is just if Raya is injured. If we get some confirmation from the press conferences, or if there's lots of rumours floating about that he's going to miss the weekend, then this is what we're going to do. At least this is probably what I'm going to do. Obviously not 100% confirmed, because I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to keep the players that I've chosen, but this is just a possible replacement if that does happen. But that is the team. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments section. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you are new. Again, make sure to go and look at the wildcard picks video if you are on a wildcard this week, because there's everything that you need to know about how to pick the best one for your team. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.